Ben Ray Lujan is coming up on his 5-month anniversary as New Mexico's junior senator. He walked into a razor-thin majority for Democrats in the U.S. Senate, with the vice president able to cast a tie-breaking vote. The senator brings some of his House of Representatives priorities with him, as well as taking on broader issues such as immigration. Here's NMAF correspondent Russell Contreras, who spoke with the senator this week.
Senator Ben Ray Lujan, thank you for joining us on New Mexico in Focus. We really appreciate it.
Always an honor, Russ. Good to be with you today.
So you've been in office just a few months now. What's the difference between the Senate and the House after a decade in the House and some years in House leadership? Are you familiarizing yourself with the new body? How is it going?
Well, Russ, there are a lot of similarities. You have to get to know your colleagues, make sure you meet them one-on-one and get a chance to work with them and their teams. And that's something I've appreciated, even with colleagues where we may have had some disagreements in committee and had different approaches to getting to the same goal. Afterwards, I've had the honor of sitting down and talking to my colleagues and make sure that we're on a good path and that we're able to continue to working together. There are different rules of engagement, if you will. There's different procedures and rules that govern both bodies. And so that's been something that I've been spending time learning and understanding, but have very much appreciated the support I've received from my colleagues and the votes that we've been able to earn to pass important pieces of legislation, including directing $17 billion to the Department of Energy National Labs for the Science and Tech Directorate recently. So again, very much appreciate getting a chance to meet people, work with people, and make a difference for the people of New Mexico.
Senator, when you and I last spoke, you made it very clear you wanted to reach across the aisle with Republicans to work on various proposals. You and GOP Senator Rick Scott of Florida are working on a law called the Rider Act that attempts to attack drunken driving. Tell us about that law.
The Reduce Impaired Driving for Everyone Act, the RIDE Act, that I have the honor of working with Senator Scott with, is a piece of legislation that was also championed by our very own senator in New Mexico, Tom Udall. Russ, it's a story that I don't share often, and now that we're working on this legislation, I've been talking about it more. About 29 years ago, less than half a mile from my home in Nambe, I was driving home one night and a drunk driver hit me head on. And I'm fortunate that I'm here to tell that story and to talk about it today. For a long time, all I would see was the headlights coming right at me. Anytime I closed my eyes, whether it was day or night. And too many families have been lost. So many families that have been victims of drunk drivers on the wrong side of the road, which is what happened to me on that state road in Nambe, but even on interstates. And we recently lost some loved ones in New Mexico, and it happens across America every day. This piece of legislation, which requires auto manufacturers to include readily available technology to prevent and stop drunk driving accidents across America. It's something that we're growing more and more momentum with. There's strong bipartisan support. Even my colleagues from Michigan now have become co-sponsors and have been advocating for the legislation. I just jumped off of a hearing in the Commerce Committee as well, where part of my line of questioning was about getting support for the RIDE Act. Again, this is readily available technology. It will save people's lives. It's common sense. And here's what sums it up, Russ. If auto manufacturers across America are asking for waivers to liability for self-driving, fully automated self-driving cars, why can't they include this technology? There should not be a reluctance. And I'm going to keep pushing until we get this done.
Now, you ran on the environment during your campaign. And as of right now, the Tularosa downwinders from the Trinity test, the world's first atomic bomb test, haven't been included in the Radiation Compensation Act. That law is set to sunset next year. What are the chances of extending that law and including folks from Tularosa and Mescalero Apache?
I'm working diligently to get the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act extended, which expires at the end of 2022. And Russ, you point out something that no one has been able to give me a good answer with why the people of Tularosa, where the first bomb was tested with the Trinity test site on American soil, when other counties across America have been included as downwind of where nuclear testing took place, how can it be that two communities, especially in New Mexico, in Tularosa and out in Church Rock in McKinley County, that where the berm broke back in 1979 and those uranium tailings went flooding into arroyos, contaminating streams and arroyos and waterways, sheep and cattle and people, how could they be left out? Open uranium pit mining in around Laguna, Acoma, Pueblos as well. How are they not included? So I've been raising this issue with my colleagues. At the very least, this program needs to be extended, number one. There should be an apology issued by the United States. And I was able to get that included in the House National Defense Authorization Act, but it didn't make it through the Senate Conference Committee. Now I'm in the Senate, and I'm going to work diligently to get that done and include as many provisions as we can with RECA. I'll never forget the voice of an elder Navajo woman who testified here in Washington, D.C. on the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, Russ. And she asked members of Congress, are you all waiting for us to die so the problem goes away? Think about how profound that is. And we've lost loved ones through the last many months and years. It's not right. This is a liability for the United States of America, and the United States needs to do right by every uranium miner that was not included in the original RECA, and for all the communities that were excluded from downwind status that should have been included from the very beginning.
New Mexico is a state that continues to struggle with poverty. You and I have talked about that in the past. Your staff and your colleagues say, if you talk to Senator Lujan, he will talk your ear off about broadband. You believe that broadband could be the center of connecting New Mexico and improving this economy. Why is broadband connection so important to you?
Well, there are many programs and projects and legislative initiatives that have to be adopted to address poverty throughout New Mexico and across America. One of those that was included recently was the expansion of the child tax credit, which families are slated to start to see in their bank accounts now in July. That is important, and we're working to make that permanent. That's number one. But broadband, I really think this is a game changer, Russ, for so many parts of the United States, and especially New Mexico, that are not connected with fast, affordable internet. So many of us know the difference between slow internet, fast internet, or no internet. And it's simply unacceptable. When you can get on an airplane and stay connected at 30,000 feet and fly across America, connected to the internet at faster speeds than you can in communities that you're flying above, or even at the International Space Station, we in the United States can solve this problem. And that's why I've been working diligently to include robust funding for broadband in the infrastructure package that is coming up. President Biden has included it in his proposal with the American Jobs Plan as well, that he presented to the United States Senate and to the U.S. House of Representatives. I'm working on several legislative initiatives. And I'm also proud to chair the subcommittee that has jurisdiction over broadband deployment, the FCC as well, Russ. So right now we're able to lift up people's voices across New Mexico to make sure we're not left out. And here's what it comes down to. There's a sophomore that attends Cuba High School. Her name's Helene. She lives out in Counselor, New Mexico. She's Navajo. She does not have electricity at her home. She does not have a broadband connection. She depends on a wireless phone, but that wireless phone has fixed caps on data. And so the family's very weary about using that phone too much so she has enough bandwidth to do her homework. It takes her almost 2 hours to get to school every day. If we can do right by Helene, get Wi-Fi on her school bus, make sure she has a connection at home, that she doesn't have data caps subjected to her mobile device, and we can get her electricity, running water, and wastewater, then we're doing right. And so I'm looking at this through the lens of what I've learned from Helene, this very brave 16-year-old girl, a sophomore, right from New Mexico, that has participated in hearings and testimony already. And that is a voice that we need to continue to lift up and learn from.
Now, the Democrats have a tiny majority in the Senate, and many of the progressive wish list items coming from the House won't make it through this divided body. As we talk right now, Senator Tim Scott, we mentioned earlier, is working on a comprehensive police reform bill. It's in negotiations right now. For this to pass muster for you, what would you like to see in that package?
Look, I think that there is progress being made from Senator Booker working with Senator Tim Scott, as well as Karen Bass, who's the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus and still a member of the House of Representatives as well. I just talked to both Senator Booker and to Karen about progress they're making, and I need to check in with Senator Scott. But I was optimistic with what they shared with me. Look, we want to make sure that we're bringing attention to the injustices in our communities and that we're able to implement a policy that we can get support and get signed into law. And I think that's what Cory and Tim are trying to get done in the Senate with the support of Karen. I proudly supported legislation in the past, Russ, out of the House with the George Floyd Policing Act. It's a piece of legislation that also already passed the House of Representatives. And that framework is something that's important for us to be considering and looking at as we're able to make these changes, some of which are already adopted in New Mexico. So again, looking to see what Cory and Tim and Karen will come up with, but we trust them to come up with a strong package. And I just appreciate them willing to work together across the aisle for the good of America.
Same could also be said about immigration reform. It's something we've been trying to pass for 2 decades now. Are you optimistic that we could get something through the Senate by 2022?
Russ, I'm optimistic, but it comes with this. It's clear to me that many of my Republican colleagues have chosen to make this political with immigration reform. And it's not in the interest of folks that want to use this as a wedge issue to try to solve the problem. Where I am encouraged are several of my Republican colleagues have been willing to sit down on a bipartisan basis to be able to find ideas and solutions. And I'm hoping that more members in the House and in the Senate, Democratic and Republican, take a look at members that are trying to solve this problem. The Dream and Promise Act already passed the House of Representatives again this year with the bipartisan support, Democratic and Republican members supporting it. The Farm Worker Modernization Act passed with 30 Republicans in the House supporting it. There's no question that they have the votes to pass here in the Senate. And I've been continuing to raise this issue, not just with the White House, personally meeting with fellow Congressional Hispanic Caucus colleagues in the Oval Office with the president and the vice president, as well as my Senate colleagues. We meet on a weekly basis, if not a couple times a week. And there's a bipartisan group where we've been getting together to try to grow more support. So I am optimistic that we can get something done. We must get something done. It's not just good for America. This is good for our economy as well. And it will keep people safer, make people safer. It'll treat people with dignity and respect. And again, it's going to be a critical component of growing our economy and our GDP.
And finally, the few seconds we have with you left here, Mr. Senator, the Senate sometimes can be a place where you go and where dreams die. You see the polarization, but you see a lot of collegiality. As you've spent time in the Senate just these past few weeks, are you more optimistic about America, or have you turned more pessimistic?
I'm always optimistic, Russ. Look, I think that people want to solve problems and get things done. In my experience in the Senate, the example that I shared with you, as we're working together on a bipartisan bill to increase America's competitiveness, we just saw an announcement by Intel with a $3.5 billion investment in the New Mexico facility out in Rio Rancho. We need to be aggressive when it comes to chip manufacturing and advances with space and other science and tech directorate and research. I was able to pass an amendment that invested and authorized $17 billion to the Department of Energy. Our national labs in New Mexico will benefit, Los Alamos and Sandia, with the research that they are doing. And I did this with strong bipartisan support. I actually had one more, I believe, Republican vote in committee than I did a Democratic vote. And we're now bringing this to the floor. We'll be passing this legislation next week out of the United States Senate. That's just one example where we can come together to respond to competitiveness challenges, especially with the Chinese government, with what they have been doing, and to make sure the United States is going to continue to be a leader in the world when it comes to these spaces. That's just one example. Even when there was disagreement and my Republican colleagues, not a one supported the American Rescue Plan, what we saw was we were still able to come together to be able to respond to America's needs and to pass a package that provided more financial support into the pockets of hardworking middle-class Americans, and to make sure that we had vaccine to get into people's arms. That's another example of how we can work together and we can still work on policy, some of which were Republican ideas that were included in that package. Unfortunately, they didn't vote for the final package, but they helped to shape it. That's a positive response, and it shows me that we can respond, we can work together, and we can continue to work to bring the country together.
And finally, I know you've only been there a few months, but are you running for re-election?
Russ, I'm just getting started here with working with my colleagues and reaching out to fellow New Mexicans, and just give me a chance here. We're still 5 years away, and if the people of New Mexico encourage me to continue to work on their behalf, it's definitely a responsibility I'll continue to embrace. There's a whole lot more that I have to learn from fellow New Mexicans, solve these challenges and problems. But right now we're working diligently to get infrastructure investments back home, to close this broadband gap, and to create more job opportunities. So the more announcements that we have, the more build out that we have, the better New Mexico will be. And it's really a responsibility from all of us. What I always remind folks back home, and I've learned from my colleagues, namely Senator Cory Booker, he reminds us that change does not come from Washington, D.C. Change comes to Washington, D.C. from across America. And it's our responsibility to carry those voices. So continue to be proud to represent the people of New Mexico, and now be one of only 4 Democratic Hispanic senators in the Senate, building off that work and that legacy brought to us by one of our very own, Dennis Chavez, who did incredible work and always fought for the underdog, but drove investments into New Mexico. And so I'm learning about him every day as well, and making sure that I'm able to live up to the expectations that he set forth for not just our state, but for us to deliver for the people back home.
Senator Ben Ray Lujan, when you're ready to make that announcement, we'll be ready here at New Mexico in Focus. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Russ. Always an honor, sir.